fund would be, so 64 units, just thinking about the money that we would have to have in trust ultimately, to fund this at a minimum. That would be 10,000 a unit, which is the minimum at 64, so $640,000.
So what happens with the spending plan is this. I have to project over the 10-year period, how much money you're gonna take in. And what that's from is from your development fee ordinance, which is any commercial development has to pay 2.5% of their equalized assessed value into the trust fund. Any residential structure is 1.5% of the equalized assessed. And how it works is that, so let's say you put an addition on your home, it's only on the difference in your assessment, does that fee go onto? But then over time, you know, the money accumulates. And then you also have to do an expenditure projection, rehab. You have to do 30% of whatever your balance is has to be in affordability assistance. Even though to buy down a mortgage here to make it affordable would probably wipe out all the money in one house. And you can allocate up to 20% for administrative fees. So like for me, for Ron, that's court master, or adjudicator now that we are responsible for paying her bills. That comes out of that administrative fee. So we project it, right? So yeah, I try to work with construction to see, okay, how many building permits were pulled for the past couple of years and to project out how much I think, you know, we're gonna bring in.
We'll take one more question, Beth Kepler.
Steve, early in your comments, you mentioned that you had pulled permits to review for the purpose of your evaluation, like construction permits, and things like that. What was it that you mentioned about permits at the very beginning of your?
I'm not sure. We don't pull any construction permits at all. Has nothing to do with that.
There's no.
We basically do
I think maybe you're referring to what you would do would be with the construction office, see, to figure out money going into the trust fund.
housing structure.
So you would, that, or look at, you know, what has come in
yes,
terms of
yeah.
construction permits to determine, to project forward, what kind of money's gonna go into the fund in the future, because
Yes.
we're gonna need to.
Based on
guesstimate that.
what, like.
So I would say for the past 5 years, how many building permits have been pulled? What's the average value of the improvements? You know, so we could guesstimate what 1.5 would be, and then, you know, use that as because, you know, a lot of times you just throw dollars in there and they really want to look for some kind of justification on why we think we're gonna get $250,000 in the fund a year. We have to have some basis, so we do that as a check to just make sure we're not over projecting.
The permits that have been granted over the last several
I-
years.
How many per year? Because it's a yearly projection, and then get a general sense of the value. And then we can project if it's an average value increase of 100,000 and you have 10 average per year, you know, that's a good basis to project the number.
Because I was trying to do the same thing. I was looking into, like, prior to the current administration, why we hadn't set up the trust and started to collect the fees, you know, over the last, since 2017. And I was trying to determine how much money should we have in our account based on retroactively, and I was told that I had to give specific addresses, that it was not possible to determine, you know, what, you know, how many new build permits were issued, and so that's why, that was my purpose, but thank you for clarifying.
That has not been my experience where I've needed to provide specific addresses. That has not been my experience.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.